Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Sky Observers Hangout. We're so glad you are with us today. My name is Michelle, and I am the Director of Public Observing at the Adler Planetarium in Chicago, and I have a friend with me tonight. Hello, friend.
Hello, it's me. So I am Adriana. I am the astronomy educator at the Adler. We've got some other friends with us behind the scenes tonight. So our YouTube chat moderator tonight is Robert. Hi, Robert. And answering questions in the chat is our astronomer friend Geza. So if you see the Adler's name highlighted in yellow, that's going to be Robert. And when you see a name with a blue wrench next to it, that's going to be Geza, helping us by answering your questions and comments in the chat. So please ask all your questions in the chat tonight. That's what we're here for.
Absolutely. Now, Sky Observers Hangout is a place for us to gather together to nerd out about the sky. Our goal is to give you practical tips and tricks that you can use to find useful about lots of things related to sky observing. If you want to just watch us, that is perfectly fine. We would love that. We would also love to see your questions and comments in the chat, so feel free to interact with us and with each other.
Yes, we love hearing from you all. So to get this show started, tell us in the chat where you are tuning in from. And as an added bonus, tell us, have you observed a lunar eclipse before?
We will talk about that in just a second. Now, while you do all of that, while the Adler's doors must remain closed, we are doing our best to keep our virtual doors open by creating and sharing some out-of-this-world content with you. If you wouldn't mind, please use the link that Robert will put into the chat to donate what you feel comfortable to contribute to our programming. Thank you so much for allowing us to keep sharing our universe with you.
You can also help us to get more visibility for our shows by hitting subscribe for the Adler Planetarium's YouTube channel right below this video. If you like us, you can give us a thumbs up on this video too. And one more big thank you tonight to the sponsors of tonight's Sky Observers Hangout episode, PNC. The moon and the sun can be eclipsed, but do you know what can't be eclipsed? It is our appreciation for PNC support. It's just too big to eclipse.
Oh, that is awesome. So, Adriana, I have a question for you.
Yes.
Have you ever observed a lunar eclipse?
Yes. A few of them at this point. The first time that I did, it was in Florida, and I was talking on the phone with my friend who lived at the time in Wisconsin. We were both observing the same lunar eclipse at the same time. So it was really neat that we could see that from our respective locations together. That's something that I really love about observing the night sky in general. It brings people together, even people who might really be far apart. So that's a good reason as any to share this upcoming lunar eclipse with your family and friends, especially if you haven't seen them in a while. What about you, Michelle? Do you have a favorite memory of observing a lunar eclipse?
Kind of the same thing. Have observed several of them, but I remember one of them maybe about 20 years or so ago. It was, I think, in January. It was frigid, like below zero. It was beyond cold, but everybody was out looking at the eclipse. They're bundled up, and the moon was just bright and clear, and the sky was bright and clear, and the eclipse happened, and then it was done. It was really cool. I mean, despite the weather, folks wanted to get out and actually see this, which was pretty neat.
Yeah, feels worth it. I think so. So now let's see where you all are tuning in from tonight. We have friends from, oh, look at all these places. Kauai, Hawaii. Hello.
Kauai.
Kauai, thank you.
Kauai. Yeah. Oh my goodness.
Very
We
cool.
actually have someone from Hawaii.
Very
Wow.
neat. You're going to get a better view of this eclipse, I think, than.
You're going to get a great view. We are now officially jealous. All right, go ahead.
We've also got friends from Toronto. Hello. Awesome. Park Ridge, Naperville, Chicago, of course, representing from our area. Evanston, I used to live there. Westchester. Oh, hi, John. Thank you all for joining us tonight. I am glad you all are here. Oh, Steve says, I was at that frigid lunar eclipse. We all headed by the heat outlet by the side of the Adler. I remember.
I was actually not at the Adler that night. I was at home. I wasn't tasked to help out with that one, but I knew that there were a lot of people there. So I was at my apartment. There were a few people there, but yeah, we were all very cold.
Oh yeah.
All right.
Awesome.
Anybody else before we go on?
I think we are good to go.
Alrighty, so let us go on. Now, if you are here, you probably know that by now that there is a lunar eclipse coming up tomorrow, May 26, 2021, visible in the Chicago area starting at 4:44 a.m. Central Time. So we are going to walk through where and when you'll be able to see it. So let me share my screen. And give me just a second. I'm going to pull up the website called Time and Date. There we go. All right, go ahead.
Excellent. So using timeanddate.com, we are pulling up what is called an eclipse visibility map for the upcoming eclipse. Robert is going to go ahead and link to that in a chat in just a second. So if you want to check it out too, you are welcome to. The darker red areas that you see on this map are parts of the world where you'd be able to see more or all of the total lunar eclipse from start to end. And the lighter red areas see less gradually. So here in Chicago, we'll see the penumbral and partial parts of the eclipse, while those tuning in from a bit further west in the US, in Canada, in Hawaii, you guys will be able to see some or all of the total lunar eclipse, which is very exciting. Wherever you are, you can use this website. You can type your city into the location search, and you can get more detailed information like local start and end time and exactly what you'll be able to see from your location. So Michelle, if you want to give an example, you can type in another city here to see what we might see somewhere else.
Let's see. What would you like? Where shall we go? Where would you like?
Let's
pick our favorite target. Where do you want to go?
Let's. I have a friend who lives in Vancouver.
Vancouver. All right. Vancouver. I started typing Vancouver and it brings up Vancouver. I'm going to click on Vancouver. There we go. So we have, oh, they get to see the whole thing. I'm going to move the map over a little bit and you can see that a pin gets dropped wherever the city is that you select in there. So there you go.
Excellent.
Go ahead.
So if you go ahead, once you find your location and type it in, you can go ahead and click see animation of how it will look. Yep. And that is going to get you a video of what to expect to see, as well as extra information about the direction and altitude. Technical difficulties.
Sorry. There we go.
Totally okay. But that will get you that video there so you can see what you should expect to see in your sky, as well as additional information about the direction and altitude that you'll look to find the eclipse. You can see it right down at the bottom there. So direction and altitude. Altitude just being how high in the sky something is. So you can always use your phone's compass to find the exact direction. That'll help you figure out where to look for that. And then for altitude, we have a quick tip that we've shared with you all before, but we'll share it again just in case folks are tuning in for the first time.
And before you do that, quick thing, hang on. This had gone back to Chicago. So hang on. We promised our Vancouver friends that I would actually show Vancouver. So give me just a second. So I had seen what I did before. So I'm going to see if this will actually bring up the animation for Vancouver. There it is. So there you go. Depending on where you are, that'll bring up that animation. So greatly sped up, of course.
Excellent.
So, sorry, go ahead. And you mentioned altitude. So
yeah, so we have a trick that we use for finding altitude in the night sky when we're looking for something. Right here you have kind of, what does that say? Is that 18.8?
18.8 degrees in altitude when the penumbral eclipse begins in Vancouver.
Great. So if you are trying to figure out how high to look in the sky for something and you have the altitude, all you want to do, Michelle, can you switch to speaker view, please?
You betcha.
Thank you. So all you want to do is extend your arm out and close your fist. You can actually use your fist extended as a measurement. So your fist from top to bottom fully extended is about 10 degrees. And then if you want to use that to figure out other measurements, you can use 2 fists for 20 degrees. You can use half a fist for 5 degrees, etc.
Cool. So yeah, just take a look at that altitude info. Use your fists, use your fingers. You'll be able to figure out where to look. Okay, now if you're near or in the Chicago area, we did make a viewing chart to show you where to look and what to expect to see from this eclipse. So I'm going to share a different part of my screen. I'll share the viewing chart. There it is. Now, this eclipse from the Chicago area will be visible low in the southwest sky, and it'll keep moving lower and further west until the moon sets at 5:26 a.m. Central Time, while still only partially eclipsed. Unfortunately, from Chicago, because the total eclipse will occur once the moon is below our horizon, we'll just get to see the moon partially eclipsed this time around. But even a partial eclipse is something cool to see and something to it's something worth looking for. Now, what should you look for? What you're going to look for is a shadow creeping over the moon as it gets lower and lower in the sky. In places where you'll get a total lunar eclipse, like our friends in Vancouver, that creeping shadow will later give way to a darker red colored moon, maybe gray, red. We'll see what you get. We'll talk a little bit more about why that happens in just a bit.
Excellent. And one note here, you don't need any special tools of any kind to observe this. Telescopes and binoculars will make for a fun viewing experience if you have them. So I think that if you've got them already, it is definitely worth using them. But the naked eye viewing alone will still be really good. It'll still be something cool to see. So the next partial lunar eclipse after this one visible in Chicago will be on November 19th of this year, 2021. So it'll be a good many months before you can catch this phenomenon again. All the more reason to go outside if you can and check it out this time around.
And if you're curious about when we'll see a total lunar eclipse here from Chicago, we've got you covered as well. I know it's a bit of a wait, but the next total lunar eclipse visible from Chicago will happen next year on May 15th, 2022. So almost exactly a year from now. It'll also be a bit higher in the sky and happening in the evening, which is awesome. So the viewing will be great, weather permitting, of course. If you're wondering how you can look out for upcoming lunar or solar eclipses in your area, timeanddate.com is also a great resource for that. Robert can link to the eclipses page in the chat for folks who are curious. Just search for your city in the text box and scroll down to see a list of upcoming eclipses in your area.
Excellent. And I noticed too, King Darius asked, it's supposed to be cloudy tomorrow in Chicago. Where else can we watch? So this is just Chicago weather, isn't it? This always happens to us. Not always, but so not to keep plugging time and date, but clearly we're fans. If it's cloudy near you or you won't be able to catch the eclipse for whatever reason, don't worry, you can still watch the event live streamed on timeanddate.com. Link to that is going to be posted in the chat as well. So there's still a way to watch it. Stephanie asks, do you have to be on flatland or like an open field to see it start in Chicago, or can you see it in the sky above buildings? It's going to be pretty low in the sky, so we'd recommend getting as high up. If you can get up onto a hill or someplace where there's a pretty clear view to the west without a bunch of buildings in the way, that's going to be your best bet, because it's going to be pretty low in the sky, and also it's going to be going down as the eclipse progresses.
Yeah, so that where you'll be, it depends on how tall the buildings are and how tall the trees are.
Right.
If they're kind of tall right around you, yeah, get to that open parking lot, that open field. If the clouds actually cooperate in our general area tomorrow morning. But yeah, go ahead.
Good questions. All right. I think that is all I am seeing. So it looks like we've covered basics of how to view this eclipse and get all of the info that you need to see it in your area. Let's get into a little bit more about the science behind lunar eclipses and that red color that we mentioned that we see. So lunar eclipses happen when the moon is in the part of its orbit opposite the sun, with the Earth in between the two. When the orbits are aligned just right, the moon moves into the Earth's shadow, and that's when we get lunar eclipses.
There we go. And we've got a great animation here to show what's actually going on. Go ahead.
Yeah, you can see the moon actually start to move into that shadow here. So Earth's shadow has two parts. One part is called the penumbra, the other part is the umbra. The umbra is the darkest shadow region, and the penumbra is a lighter shadowed region where less of the light is blocked. During the penumbral part of the eclipse, you'll see the moon appear just a bit dimmer, and while the partial and during the partial and total parts of the eclipse, when the moon moves into the Earth's umbra, the darker part of that shadow, it's going to more noticeably block light, so it'll get darker.
In this
And you can
animation,
kind of see the two bits of the shadow there.
Yep, that's right. And in the animation, you probably saw right at the beginning, and you'll notice as the moon moves into the darker shadow region for the total part of the eclipse, it eventually darkens to a reddish color. These days, folks love calling this part of the eclipse the blood moon. You probably have heard that term. A little bit dramatic, right? But we're okay with some moon-related drama here. And let's talk about why this reddish color happens. And I'm going to show you an image to explain. I'm going to switch the sharing here. Now, sunlight is white light, which is composed of a full spectrum of colors. As this white sunlight passes through the Earth's atmosphere, the blue light gets scattered by our atmosphere. So this makes the sky blue, right? So when you're looking through a lot of air in the atmosphere, like when the sun is low in the sky and the sunlight has to pass through more air as it skims our atmosphere before it gets to your eyes, the more blue light is scattered away by that as it passes through all that air. The light that makes it to your eyes without being scattered away is redder, and this is why sunrises and sunsets appear red. By the way, I have to mention this. This is Adriana's personal handiwork. This drawing.
I doodled.
She doodled, and it was great. We had to use it. So anyway, you will not find this drawing anywhere else but Sky Observers Hangout. So, okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, excellent. So when the Earth is blocking sunlight from getting to the moon as it is during a total lunar eclipse, some sunlight is passing low through our atmosphere and that gets refracted or bent and is still able to shine onto the moon. Because that sunlight is passing through more of the air in the atmosphere, the same thing happens to it. It's redder because the air in the atmosphere scatters blue light away and leaves just the redder light. The light that gets bent towards the moon is red for that reason, hence the phrase blood moon, which is a really cool thing to see. I love the comment that Geza put in the chat. The red color of the umbra is due to a ring of 1,000 sunsets, the light streaming through the atmosphere surrounding the Earth. Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
That was so beautifully put. All right. So from Chicago, we won't see much of that particular effect as it's most easily visible during the total lunar eclipse, but we'll still likely see a red-orange tint to the moon during the partial eclipse as the moon gets close to the horizon before it sets. Why? You might be wondering. Moonset. So just like sunrise and sunset, when the moon is rising or setting, it turns a red-orange color. Fingers crossed we'll get clear skies down to the horizon to see it. It's looking doubtful right now, but I don't know, anything can happen. But don't be surprised if you lose sight of the moon before it sets. Poet in residence, says Geza, I am fully on board. In full agreement.
Absolutely. All right. How are we doing with questions? Everybody seems to be hanging out, hoping real a lot that we're going to be able to see it here, but probably not. But that's okay.
Yeah. We do what we can with the weather that we get. I am looking through and not seeing any additional questions. So
All right.
I think we are good to carry on.
Great. Okay. So, shall we go on?
Sure, yeah.
All right. So in the present day, we consider lunar eclipses an opportunity to observe something cool in our sky, maybe even with friends and family. Unfortunately, this kind of enthusiasm for these events was not shared throughout history. In many cultures, eclipses were considered bad omens. I'm going to share a drawing here. Here we've got an illustration from our historical collection showing the supposed catastrophic events that could happen during a lunar eclipse. I find this fascinating. All the calamitous stuff.
All at the same time.
All of it at the same time.
Is that like a snake attacking a bull?
Yes.
And then a person covering their eyes so they don't see the monstrosity.
Apparently. I mean, think of the size of a typical bull. How big is that snake? Apparently there's some skeletal death happening up in the upper right there. I mean, the four horses of the apocalypse. Is that a ship invasion off in the distance?
I think yes. Also a ship invasion, all at once,
and a comet. I mean, just whatever it is, it's bad. Now, not to be outdone, in Babylonian culture, lunar eclipses could be omens, implying the death of a king. So to prepare for that, it was actual practice for the real king to be replaced with a man off the street dressed as one. This way, the false king would suffer any bad consequences instead of the actual king. Now, because lunar eclipses were thought to be a threat in this way, the Babylonians learned to keep track of lunar eclipses and then predict them with accuracy.
It's a good reason as any.
Yes, for sure.
Oh, John also says an eclipse was bad news for the 2004 St. Louis Cardinals. Oh no.
Oh dear. says the White Sox fan. So yes, yes.
Ooh, we will touch on your question in just a second, Tracy. So eclipses weren't just for predicting doom and gloom. So lunar eclipses, along with maps of the moon, were actually used to measure longitudes on Earth. How, you might be wondering? By timing the progression of the Earth's shadow on the moon during the eclipse, using particular lunar features from different locations. So the desire to measure longitudes on Earth actually is what drove a lot of interest in the first place in mapping the moon in the 1600s, which is kind of a neat bit of history.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So we did get one question here. What is the probability of the ISS to see the eclipse? Ooh.
Oh, since the lunar eclipse lasts about in total about 3 hours from the start of the partial to the end of the partial, and it takes the ISS about 90 minutes to orbit Earth once, they may get 2 chances to see the lunar eclipse if they're up.
Yeah.
It may be during their sleep period, don't know. But yeah, expect to maybe see some pictures possibly from the space station. Maybe that'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, that's a very cool question.
It's cool to think about it. I mean, think about it. There's one half of the Earth at any time during that eclipse is actually seeing the eclipse or facing toward the moon. So as long as they're on that half of the Earth during the eclipse, they'll see it.
Tracy says they better be awake.
They better be awake. There better be some good pictures. I mean, they've taken pictures for solar eclipses, so yeah, why not? Why not? So yeah, we'll have to write NASA. I expect pictures. All right. Any others?
Absolutely. I am not seeing any others. If you folks have questions, last chance, get them in here.
Yep. So while they're thinking and getting their last few questions in, I'll mention a couple questions that I was asked by some media folks this week, because pretty similar questions. Do you need anything? Need to use anything special to see a lunar eclipse, Adriana? Anything? Any special equipment that we may need? Do we need those solar viewing glasses or anything for this?
No. So you don't need any special tools to see a lunar eclipse. You can just see it with your eyes. You don't need any kind of special viewing glasses. The reason that we use those for solar eclipses is because the sun is just so bright The moon is totally okay to see with just your eyes. But if you do have binoculars or a telescope, it'll be a good opportunity to pull it out because you will get to see it larger with a little bit more detail. So it'll be really interesting if you have that resource, but you absolutely do not need it.
Exactly. So, great explanation. Yeah, that was definitely a question that a lot of folks asked. What do I need to see this? I said eyeballs only. So that's great. All right. Anything else before we wrap up for today?
Barbara asks, how would I check Toronto? Do you mean check to see if how you can see the eclipse in Toronto? Michelle can pull it
Yeah,
up.
I sure can. Give me just a second. And hang on. Let me go to
Oh, while you are doing that, Michelle, what is a supermoon?
Oh, all right. So, a supermoon is a term that's come about in the last few decades. It just refers to the fact that the moon's orbit is not a perfect circle. And so, therefore, the moon is sometimes closer to Earth, sometimes farther from Earth. And the point at which it's closer or farther doesn't occur at exactly the same place every time the moon goes around the Earth. That point changes. So, when the moon is close to the Earth and it coincides with full moon, that's a supermoon. So that is the next lunar eclipse. I believe the last month's full moon was also a supermoon. It's kind of nebulous, sorry, pun intended, kind of nebulous. There's no exact definition for if the full moon, if the close point occurs within X amount of hours or days or whatever of full moon, then that qualifies as a supermoon. There really isn't. There's no hard and fast definition. So anyway, we wanted to know about Toronto, so let me share my screen. And so this is on the time and date website. If you're not sure, if you just go to timeanddate.com, you go to the sun and moon section, and you go down to eclipses. If you then want to choose the map that comes up, you can search for a location. So I can type in Toronto. I can just start to type in Toronto and it'll show up. There we go.
Easy.
And it looks like, oh gosh, it is really not much there for Toronto. So what's going to happen is the penumbral eclipse will start. So the moon will start to go into the lighter part of the Earth's shadow at 4:47 in the morning. It will start to get into the darkest part of the Earth's shadow, and then it will set 2 minutes later. So you might see, I mean, if you've got a view right down to the horizon, you might see that, but the moon will be kind of dim at that point because it's just going to be so low in the sky. So give it a whirl. Sometimes that penumbral eclipse, it'll make the moon look a little more tan colored. So you might see that. So yeah, there you go.
Great. And then we had a question here. When is the next solar eclipse? So I'm assuming that you're talking about what's visible from around our area, but let me know if you're not. But there will be a partial solar eclipse coming up pretty soon on June 10th.
Yep.
This year, so not too far.
And we have a show coming up about that as well.
We
That
do.
I believe we will mention that at the end. Is that right?
Yes.
Yes, we will. So we'll get to that in just a second. So anyway, but yeah, just checking out the time and date map. I know this has Toronto on it, but notice the farther you are from this reddish color on the map, the less and less of this lunar eclipse than you're actually going to see. So, so Toronto, not so great right now, but Toronto, you're going to make up for it for that solar eclipse coming up. So stay tuned. You're gonna get better. So you may miss the lunar, the solar you're gonna get. So on June 10th. So anyway, all right.
Excellent.
Anything else with the eclipse map before I close it out?
No, I think that is all. Tracy asks, is the Sky Deck, aka Sears Tower, open at 4:30 a.m.? If I had to bet, I would say no.
No.
But that would be, if it were, that would be an excellent viewing location.
Yeah, we thought about we have thought about doing some eclipse viewing from the Sky Deck in the past. The only problem is if it's cloudy or the weather is so iffy here in Chicago, so it's tough to plan for. So yeah, it has crossed our minds in the past as well. So
Yeah.
all right, are we
All
all good?
right. I think so. I think.
All right. Well, this was great, friends. Thank you. We hope you had fun. We hope we answered your questions. We hope you can join us for our next episode of Sky Observers Hangout on June 9th at 7 p.m. Central, where we will be exploring solar eclipses up ahead of the upcoming partial solar eclipse. It's a great month for eclipses. Side note, if you have a lunar eclipse, you'll have a solar eclipse either 2 weeks before or 2 weeks after. We get lucky. We at least get the opportunity to see both here in Chicago. It's great. Keep
Very
in
cool.
mind that you will need solar viewing glasses to safely observe this next solar eclipse. That goes for literally everybody. We'll explain
Yes.
why on June 9th. But literally everyone who will have the opportunity to see this solar eclipse, you will need solar viewing glasses to see the sun at any point during that eclipse. So order them now if you haven't yet done that. If you have them left over from the last eclipse in 2017, great. If you've kept them safe, if they don't have any tears or holes in them, if you've kept them out of humidity, should be okay. If you're not sure, spend a couple bucks and order another pair. Just do it now because it might take a few days to actually get them. So you want them in
Yeah.
time for June 10th. Now be sure if you get to see it, send us any lunar eclipse photos and observations via our social media feeds. We'll have info on that in just a second using the hashtag #LookUp. We'd love to know you are out there connecting with the sky and observing the eclipse. Thank you so much for joining us and supporting our programming. We absolutely love sharing this time with you.
We do. Steve says my brother in Hawaii will take a pic and send it to me. If you're in Hawaii and you want to send us pictures, we would love to see them. Share them with us on social media. Very cool. All right. Also, tell us, how did we do? We would love to get some feedback from you. Robert is going to link a feedback survey in the chat. It'll only take a very short amount of time to fill it out. And if you filled it out before, please do so again so we can keep track of our improvements. It'll help us make our shows even better. You can also suggest future show topics, which we would love to see. So you can also find that feedback survey link in tonight's program description. If the chat closes before you can click the link, you can just access it there.
And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. Thank you so much for joining us, everyone. And please keep looking up. Good night.
Have a good night.